My name is Daphne, and until 6 months ago, I was living a fairy tale I thought I deserved. I was 28, marrying Ethan, a pediatric surgeon with a heart of gold, a quiet, almost old-fashioned sense of devotion, and a family net worth that bordered on indecent. Our wedding was going to be the culmination of my life's ambition, a $400,000 spectacle at a historic mansion in Newport, Rhode Island, paid for entirely by Ethan's family trust. I called it my perfect day, Ethan called it a celebration of love. I knew better. It was my guaranteed entry into a life of effortless luxury, and I was determined to secure every last detail, no matter the cost to my conscience. Ethan was the opposite of me. He didn't care about the labels on the champagne or the thread count of the linens. He genuinely just wanted to marry me. His only real request was that we keep the guest list intimate and focus on the meaning of the vows. I, naturally, dismissed all of that as quaint nonsense. The guest list swelled to 300, mostly my extended social circle, the flowers were flown in from Holland, and the entire event was being meticulously managed by a high-end planner named Celeste, whose fees alone were higher than my annual salary. The problem started with the prenuptial agreement. Ethan presented it 6 months before the wedding, and while it was generous, protecting my future interests and ensuring I was secure, it contained one non-negotiable clause, a standard infidelity clause that would void any post-divorce spousal support and require repayment of any marital gifts of significant value. I skimmed it, signed it quickly. I had no intention of cheating, but I didn't like the feeling of being held to it, and promptly forgot about it. My focus was on securing my future, and that required capital now, not later. The idea that blossomed in my mind was insidious. The wedding budget, controlled by Ethan and his mother, Mrs. Peterson, who viewed me with a sort of polite, clinical suspicion, was vast but finite. I needed a significant cash infusion before the wedding, an amount that would cover some personal debts I had accumulated and a down payment on a new car. All things I was too embarrassed to ask Ethan directly for. So, I decided to inflate the wedding budget and siphon off the difference. It was a stupid, short-sighted scam, but in my mind, it was just clever financial engineering. I approached Celeste, the wedding planner, with my scheme. Celeste, who was clearly used to the rampant entitlement of the rich, listened with a blank face. My plan was simple. Celeste would grossly inflate the cost of 2 major vendor contracts, the custom lighting and the European pastry chef, by a total of $150,000. Ethan's mother would approve the inflated invoices, the money would be transferred to Celeste's operating account, and she would then cut me a discreet, third-party cashier's check for the full amount, minus a 10% fee for her silence. It's just paper shuffling, Celeste, I told her over a ridiculously expensive lunch, my voice tight with nerves. Ethan's family has so much money, they won't even notice. It'll just look like the costs ran over. Celeste fixed me with a cold stare. Daphne, $150,000 is not a rounding error. However, your fiancé's mother signed a binding, non-disclosure agreement with me before I even started. My primary allegiance is to my business and my contract. If you can guarantee I receive the full inflated amount into my account and that I am completely indemnified from any legal repercussions, I will process the transfer. Her agreement was a terrifying green light. I forged a few emails from the lighting vendor and the pastry chef, creating documentation that cited unforeseen logistical complexity and currency exchange fluctuations. I presented the new, inflated budget to Ethan. He looked at the new total. Now well over $550,000. And his brow furrowed, but not in anger. Daphne, this is enormous. Are we sure we need to spend this much on lighting? I thought the main hall had great natural light. Ethan, darling, please. I practically wailed, laying on the drama. This is our day. This is what the Petersons do. It's an investment in our future social standing. You trust me, don't you? It's all handled by Celeste. She's the best. Ethan sighed, kissed my forehead, and said the words that were my eventual undoing. I trust you completely, Daph. I trust your judgment. He signed off on the funds transfer. Within 2 weeks, the money was moved. Celeste sent the wire, and I had a cashier's check for $135,000 in my possession. I felt an exhilarating rush of triumph. I was smarter than all of them. I used $50,000 to clear the debt and the rest to buy the car and a truly exquisite diamond tennis bracelet, which I claimed was a gift from my parents. My plan was flawless, right up until the point where Ethan's job skills intersected with his quiet personality. Ethan, the kind pediatric surgeon, was also the heir to a logistics empire. His family's business was rooted in the meticulous, fraud-proof management of global supply chains. His brain wasn't just trained to save lives, it was trained to detect anomalies. About 6 weeks after the money transferred, Ethan started displaying strange behavior. He became obsessed with the wedding budget, but not the costs. He was obsessed with the vendors. "Daphne," he said one night, looking up from his laptop. "I just wanted to make sure everything was running smoothly. Could you send me the final, reconciled contracts for the lighting and the pastry chef? I'm creating a comprehensive liability chart for the whole event for the trust." I froze. "Liability chart? Ethan, why? Celeste handles all that. You don't need to worry your genius mind with light fixtures." "It's not worry, Daph," he replied, his voice calm, rational. "It's efficiency. My father taught me to reconcile every ledger. I just want the digital file directly from the vendor. A simple email forward." My heart hammered against my ribs. I had forged the summary emails, but I certainly couldn't produce the official, detailed contracts Celeste had been forced to create for the internal accounting system. I lied. I lied beautifully. "I don't have the original digital file, honey. I think Celeste only sent hard copies, and she has those sealed for her records. I'll ask her to send them to you." I immediately texted Celeste, "Do not send Ethan anything. Tell him you only have sealed paper copies." Celeste texted back immediately, "Done. But you have crossed a line. Your fiancé is running due diligence. You need to resolve this." I thought I had avoided the disaster. I celebrated that night by wearing my new tennis bracelet, dismissing Ethan's mild obsession as pre-wedding jitters. But I had forgotten who Ethan was, a man who, when a patient's vitals showed an anomaly, didn't trust the bedside nurse, he went to the lab himself. 2 days later, Ethan and I were at the rehearsal dinner walkthrough. We were standing in the ballroom, reviewing the floor plan, when Ethan excused himself. "I just want to check the placement of the uplighting with the electrical team," he said. "Be right back." I watched him walk toward a man on a ladder, and I noticed something odd. The electrical team wasn't from the vendor I had forged the documents for. It was a small, local crew. When Ethan returned, his smile was gone. His eyes, usually warm and reassuring, were cold, clinical, and terrifyingly focused. "The lighting contract is worth $35,000, he said, his voice a low, precise murmur that only I could hear. "Not the $100,000 on the final invoice you presented. The pastry chef's total fee is $25,000, not the $75,000 you documented. That's a variance of $150,000. I just spoke to the owners of both companies. They were bewildered by the discrepancy but showed me their official contracts, which matched their bank transfers from Celeste's company." I felt the room spin. I tried to speak, but no sound came out. Ethan continued, his voice absolutely steady. "I called my mother this afternoon. She wasn't happy. She also wasn't surprised. My father started his company because an employee tried to defraud them using inflated invoices. He taught me the warning signs, unjustified cost spikes, resistance to documentation, and emotional deflection. You exhibited all three." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, encrypted USB drive. "I spent the last 48 hours running a forensic audit on all wedding expenditures. I didn't hack you, Daphne. I simply followed the money. Celeste wired the money to a third-party account in the Cayman Islands, which then issued a cashier's check to a shell company in Delaware, which then forwarded the funds to a private account linked to your mother's maiden name," Ethan recited, listing the complicated money trail with the same ease he'd recite surgical steps. "It was sloppy, Daphne. You used the cash to pay off a $50,000 credit card debt and purchase a $70,000 car that is currently parked in my garage. Your name is on the title, but the funds are irrefutably documented as fraudulent." I tried to grab his arm, tears finally flowing. "Ethan, please. It was a mistake." I panicked. I was just. He pulled his arm away sharply. "The contract you signed? The prenuptial agreement you dismissed as quaint nonsense? It contains an Exhibit C, fraudulent misrepresentation clause. It states that any attempt to misappropriate, defraud, or illegally divert funds from the Peterson Family Trust will result in the immediate and permanent termination of the agreement, including a full restitution of all funds paid on your behalf, plus legal fees. The sheer scope of his calculated retaliation hit me harder than a physical blow. He wasn't going to yell, he was going to litigate. I spoke with my father's legal team this morning, Ethan said, looking down at me with an expression of clinical regret. The wedding is cancelled, effective immediately. Every vendor has been notified and paid their cancellation fee. From the money I transferred out of our joint planning account, which you will be required to replenish. He handed me a small, sealed envelope. This is a subpoena and a restraining order. You are required to vacate the premises of the apartment we share by 5 p.m. today. The keys have been transferred to the building manager. You are not to contact me, my family, or any of the vendors involved in the event. I opened the envelope. Inside were the most brutal, precise documents I had ever seen. The restraining order barred me from all Peterson family properties. The subpoena demanded my appearance in court and included an itemized list of every cent I had received. You need to provide a complete accounting of the $135,000, along with a full restitution plan, Ethan continued, his voice never rising above a conversational tone. And that's not all you owe, Daphne. My family trust has requested repayment for every gift and expenditure made on your behalf over the last year, citing the fraud clause. He reached out and, with surgical precision, unclasped the diamond tennis bracelet from my wrist. This bracelet? It was purchased with the defrauded funds. It's coming with me as evidence. The car? It will be repossessed this afternoon. The debt you paid off? You will repay the trust that amount. Then he listed the truly devastating totals, the cost of the engagement ring? $120,000. The deposits on the venue, the floral designer, the catering? $110,000. The total cost of the wedding planning fees, which you were the sole recipient of the benefit from? $60,000. The total cost of the clothes, trips, and gifts I purchased for you in the last year, all documented by my accounting team? $95,000. He looked at the floor plan of the ballroom, the spot where we were supposed to have our first dance. You wanted a $400,000 wedding. You now owe the Peterson Family Trust $150,000 in fraudulent funds, plus an estimated $385,000 in restitution and accrued legal fees. You didn't just lose the wedding, Daphne, you lost your entire net worth and accumulated a $500,000 debt. I could only stare at him, numb with shock. You did all this, cancelled everything, just because of the money? Ethan's face hardened. No. I did all this because I am a man whose entire life is built on trust and diligence. I saved children's lives. I manage my family's financial future. You looked me in the eye, told me you loved me, and treated my devotion as a logistical loophole you could exploit for $150,000. My anger isn't about the money, Daphne. It's about the fact that you saw me as an easily fooled mark. He put the USB drive and the bracelet into his pocket, took one final look at the mansion, and walked away. He didn't look back. I was left standing in an empty ballroom, surrounded by the ghosts of a $400,000 dream that now translated into a $500,000 nightmare. My stupidity wasn't in trying to scam him, it was in thinking a man whose life depended on meticulous, zero-tolerance execution would ignore a six-figure financial anomaly in his own life. Ethan, the quiet surgeon, won his reputation, his money, and his peace of mind. I lost everything, gained a mountain of debt, and learned the hardest lesson of my life: never try to scam the one person whose job it is to spot a flaw in the system.